It is 10:01. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. There is a new deadline for Major League Baseball to save opening day from being canceled after a 16-hour day of meetings on Monday. The MLB and MLBPA reportedly moved the deadline to reach a new collective bargaining agreement that would save regular season games from being canceled to today at 4 p.m. Central. Former Baylor head coach Art Briles informed Grambling State on Monday he would no longer be the school's offensive coordinator. This comes after backlash from the decision of head coach Hugh Jackson to hire Briles due to his firing from Baylor in 2016 following a campus-wide sexual assault investigation with a focus on the football program. Jon Morant continues to dazzle for the Memphis Grizzlies, going 22 of 30 on Monday to break his own franchise record for points in a regular season game with 52 in a 118-105 win over the San Antonio Spurs.
Rebound by Adams, his sixth. Morant blows by Primo. Attack!
That is the sound of Jon Morant's huge dunk over 7-footer Jakob Poeltl, the voice of the Grizzlies on television. Pete Pranica on the call there. He'll join us here on the Buck Reising Show at 11:20. Morant also delivered a halftime buzzer beater with 4.4 seconds left on the clock. And the Grizzlies are 43-20, currently third in the Western Conference. They'll travel to Boston on Thursday. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once and your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Good morning. Welcome in on this Tuesday. So happy to have you guys in for the show. Here with you until 1 o'clock. Lucas Panzica's back there making it happen. Got a couple of cool guests for you today and a lot to discuss across the sports world. Jump in if you want. 615-737-1045 is the number. 615-737-1045. I am determined, bound and determined to talk about the Memphis Grizzlies today. 1,000%, because in the rare moment where it felt like everybody was watching, at least in Nashville sports, I don't know if there was just a lull in what everybody was paying attention to, didn't really have anything else to do but throw on the Grizzlies hosting the Spurs last night and see greatness, true greatness, playing for the Memphis Grizzlies. Number 12, Jon Morant, unbelievable. We're going to talk a lot of NBA today, a lot of basketball, given that it's the first day of March. A great opportunity for the Vols, by the way, to be able to continue to keep their hopes alive in the SEC and continue to push to improve their seeding with the tournament just on the horizon. And, of course, it's the first day of the NFL Combine. I'm heading up right after the show. And John Robinson and Mike Vrabel are going to speak to the media tomorrow. So we're going to enjoy all of these things over the course of the show today. But you got to start with Jon, man. Absolutely electric. FedEx Forum looks like such a fun place to see a game. We've gotten tweets about this before from unofficial associate Buck Reising show producer Vincent Love, who has been lobbying for us to take like a bus trip, I think, to Memphis and go see a Grizz game, which I would love to do. Now, of course, we would not plan these things on air. We would not just speak these things into existence without proper planning. But if that's how we got to get the conversation started, then I'm for it because I want to go see a game, man. Whenever we have a weekend where I'm not traveling for football, there's going to be a couple coming up. I think that this is a great opportunity to go see one of the biggest stars in the NBA. He's just down the road. What he did last night when he just stole the soul of Jacob, I always mispronounce his last name.
Jakob
Poeltl. Do it for me again.
Jakob
Poeltl. I always butcher it. Anyway, my guy is 7 foot, all right? And Ja went up, knocked down a buzzer beater without touching the ground, and then broke his own franchise record for points in last night's regular season game. And it's been 2 days since he said it the first time. This dude he's not the MVP of the league, all right? Because I heard some chatter and saw some chatter kind of around that. In fact, as I look up at my television right now on ESPN, that's the lead topic on First Take. Where does Jon Morant fit in the MVP race? 27.6 points per game, 5.9 rebounds, 6.6 assists this season. Memphis is 43-20. They're third in the Western Conference, and this is the first time we've talked about him. It's going to be Joel Embiid, especially with what's happening with the Philadelphia 76ers since the trade. I mean, they look unstoppable with James Harden. Now that James Harden wants to actually play basketball, I don't know that Embiid's going to be able to get caught. But from everything from the fast break dunks to Steven Adams with his best NFL quarterback impression, just launching that pass across the court to get it to Ja as time was expiring before halftime for the 68-58 lead. It was I've never seen anybody do anything like that. I thought it was funny to hear him talk after the game. I watched some press conference clips of Ja's post game, and he was basically saying, yeah, it's something I'll probably never be able to do again. Like the likelihood of that happening and being repeatable, probably not. But this man he's one of the most athletic things in college basketball in the NBA right now. I don't know who he reminds me of, but he's the point guard, and he's right here in our own state. And I don't know why we're not talking more about the Grizzlies. 615-737-1045 if you want to jump in on the conversation. I understand that, because baseball, we spent a little time on baseball yesterday. And again, they've extended this deadline for them to decide whether they're actually going to cancel games on opening day right now. Lucas, when is the deadline today?
4 p.m. today, 4 Central.
So baseball is just going to continue to screw around with us until they actually make a decision, because now you've just told me that your deadlines don't matter. So why do I even care anymore? You had me for the day yesterday. I was paying attention yesterday. You had the opportunity to make a decision or not, and instead you punted and just extended the deadline, which maybe makes you think that they're getting a little closer, but all that means to me is they are continuing to have conversations that they should have been having for a year plus prior to the CBA expiring and them needing to come to new terms. So in the interim, in the vacuum, college basketball, fantastic over the weekend. We're going to spend some time on what happened with basically the top 10 teams, and specifically with all of the top 6 teams losing on Saturday. By the way, the Vols were responsible for knocking off the third best team in the NCAA this year. We're getting closer. We are officially now in March. I woke up, it was like a breath of fresh air hit me in the face this morning. John Rothstein of CBS Sports, his first "This is March" tweet, right? That's how you know it's officially upon us. And before we all start filling out brackets, we should do something like a bracket challenge or something like that, by the way. We haven't even talked about this. But with everything else, because Lewis is chiming in on our YouTube, our Zone TV chat, Lewis says it's NASCAR time. Okay, maybe, if there's something eventful and exciting in NASCAR, I'm definitely open to it. But right now, I'm fascinated by Jon Morant. And I don't even know what was the better play. What do you think was the better play, the dunk or the buzzer beater? Because the dunk, I felt that in my soul. In my soul.
I think it's the buzzer beater. Just the control he has to suspend himself in the air and get that shot off. There's 0.4 seconds on the clock on a full court pass. Let's be honest. We're going to see that dunk again from Jon Morant. That buzzer beater is not something we've seen yet.
Athletically, it's the degree of difficulty is off the charts. Off the charts. And he's a routine highlight reel because, listen, I completely understand if you hear me open up the show with basketball today and you're like, I'll check back in the noon hour when we get into combine stuff because I got a bunch of Titans topics for you. And by the way, we are going to have John Robinson on the show tomorrow. Just got confirmation on that at 11:30 Central Time when we'll be live up in Indianapolis. John Robinson going to be on the radio show tomorrow, and we'll see if we doesn't look like we're going to be able to get Mike Vrabel, but John Robinson, who is going to be obviously the key actor in all of this for the Titans, we'll talk about that at noon, and we'll get into that all week long. I promise you, I got you. But in the meantime, I don't know why more people wouldn't gravitate towards watching this dude play, even if you're out on the league itself or, I mean, for whatever reason, whatever it is that you hold against basketball, because there's plenty of people that do. I can't tell you what to like. There's plenty of people out there who would say, why are you more interested in basketball than hockey? Or what's happening in international soccer right now, which is insane. By the way, Lucas, I don't know if you want to get into what's happening with Russia and the impact of the Ukrainian invasion and all of these different things that are happening. Like, there's a bunch of crazy stuff happening in sports right now, but basically there's a general kind of apathy for the sport of basketball, it seems like, in Nashville, or at least about the Grizzlies. And all I'm telling you is, if you're depriving yourself or just not terribly interested about it, just watch the highlights. The highlights alone are insane. When we come back, we're going to get into a conversation about the latest on Major League Baseball, what decision they were unable to come to yesterday, where it stands as of today, and what the expectation is at the deadline later this afternoon. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back. Hope you're having a great day so far. Jump in if you want, 615-737-1045. Reminder, the rest of the week. And, no, I'll be back. I'll be back by the time we do the show on Monday. But, yeah, rest of this week, we're up at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. We put it on a poll right now. At Buck Reising is where you can vote. We'll update them at the end of the show, as is the custom. What are you more interested in right now? March Madness, given that it is the first day of March. College basketball is insane. NBA last night was a ton of fun. Or the NFL Combine, which is just football, for lack of a better term. I don't want to say football filler, because there's plenty of valuable stuff to learn at the Combine. And we'll have a bunch of great interviews. Like I said, John Robinson's going to be on the show with us tomorrow in Indianapolis. But, it's largely the underwear Olympics, and there's like actual sports going on, guys. So we were having a conversation this morning before we walked in the studio, and Lucas was like disgusted with me because of how hard I was pushing combine, football, combine. And, obviously we have Jerry Stackhouse on the show today. We have Pete Pranica. There's going to be a ton of basketball stuff as well, too. But, why are you so frustrated with this?
Well, I understand the importance of it, obviously, and we certainly need to cover it, and I'm glad that you're going to be up there.
Don't couch it. Just give me what you're going to say after you say but.
I can't comprehend being more excited to watch NFL prospects be poked and prodded for 3 days than the insanity that is college basketball in the month of March. Not just the NCAA tournament. I'm talking like mid-major tournaments, the SEC tournament, the Big Ten tournament.
Right, because we've got conference tournaments on the horizon, which is, it's a pregame, basically, to get you excited for the main event, which is, of course, the bracket.
And those mid-major tournaments are arguably just as fun, if not more, because you've got one spot on the line, and it matters so much to those programs. So I'm glad that the poll so far, almost 80% are agreeing with me that March Madness is far more intoxicating at this time of year than the NFL Combine, as important as it is.
Well, what is not at this juncture is baseball.
No, the opposite.
Let me remove us from both of the things that could potentially be interesting and drag us down into the muck, shall we? Because I don't know if you've done this recently. Sometimes you just Google things to see what comes up, and every once in a while to make you laugh. So I just, for the hell of it, Googled Major League Baseball, right? I know we're going to talk about it. And theoretically, we are supposed to be in the portion of the season that is spring training, right? And so there's lists of games. You got the Astros and the Braves, the Rays, and the Yankees, the Nationals hosting the Cardinals. Like, there's a bunch of games that are there in front of you when you Google Major League Baseball. And next to every one of them, it just says canceled, 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 and so on. They're still locked out. And because they had a deadline yesterday that they chose to just say, you know what? At 1:27 a.m., which is when Jeff Passan tweeted this, they decided there will be no deal on a new collective bargaining agreement in this early hour. Again, at 1:27 a.m. Central Time. Enough progress was made that MLB and the MLBPA will meet again later today in hopes of finalizing one. Deadline to miss regular season games has been moved to 5 p.m. today. So, in theory, this means that they are closer to a resolution than they were yesterday when there was no deal agreed upon. But just to have this thing still in a place where it looks like it's stalling out and people are chasing Rob Manfred through parking lots yesterday with camera phones and asking him questions from what looks like basically a fence to keep the reporters away from him as he's trying to walk back and forth to the place where they're negotiating these things. It's been a marathon of this stuff. And again, they just basically said, yeah, you know what? We'll figure it out. Deadline yesterday kind of mattered, but not really. Deadline today, does it actually matter? I have no idea, because if you're just going to move the deadline again, what is the urgency? They don't seem to have any urgency about this. And what I end up settling on is, do people care if we miss regular season baseball games? We kind of had this conversation yesterday where baseball fans who called into the show and said it would be tragic if they deprived us of baseball. And we collectively are sitting here like, I mean, when would you start to notice that there was no baseball? Like if baseball just like evaporated, like the CBA stuff was removed from the news cycle, at what point in the sports calendar would you look up from March Madness or NHL playoffs or NFL Combine, if you're that kind of a football addict and you're snorting this stuff to get you through to September and August, at what point in the sports calendar would you look up and notice that baseball wasn't there?
Probably after the draft. If I had no knowledge of this.
So like May.
Yeah. I'd look at, wait a minute. Are the Braves aren't on TV? What's going on?
No, I honestly, I think it would be as late as June for me. Like, I think it would take until this summer for me to look up around and be like, hey, where's my day baseball? Like, where is Will Bowling in here hanging out, loitering in the studio because the Braves are playing at 11 o'clock and now I can't get him the hell out of my life because he wants to sit in here and scream at people that they need to go back to AAA. During, Game 7 of 162, which I love that about baseball fans, right? If you love this thing, you are passionate about it. Who called in yesterday? I can't remember the name of the caller. Basically said that we're too smart to not like baseball. Basically.
Well, no, he insulted your intelligence for saying baseball is not the most valuable sport in America, which it's most certainly not.
Yeah, well, so was it? Did you enjoy him insulting my intelligence?
I always enjoy that, but he was wrong, so we got to call him out.
Oh, after setting a Monday deadline for a deal, this is from Jeff Passan, to salvage a March 31st opening day following the league's December 2nd lockout of players, MLB made significant moves Monday and early Tuesday, bumping the CBT threshold to $220 million, the minimum salary to $675,000, and the bonus pool to $25 million, according to sources. I feel like my eyes glazed over reading that sentence. I can't imagine what the audience thinks of me just reading baseball terms or baseball things that baseball is agreeing to in the new CBA out loud. Like, I think people either say, give me the games or get out of my life. Like, I don't care with you dragging your heels on this thing. But if you feel differently, we'd like to hear from you. 615-737-1045. We'll do winners and losers of the weekend here in just a minute as well. But as we kind of get ready for March Madness, I'm trying to figure out who the best team in college basketball is right now. We spent some time talking about how crazy Saturday was leading up to the Vols game, and the Vols being a big part of that, where you saw the top 6 teams in the AP Top 25 poll fall all in one day. I mean, it was cataclysmic what happened with college basketball. And now you've seen the new rankings come out as of yesterday. I think we were on air. Tennessee moved up to what, Lucas, in the newest poll? From 17 to 13.
Yes.
At this point. You're kind of looking at where college basketball is. I mean, Gonzaga is still number 1, but the way that they lost to St. Mary's, we talked about the lack of belief in them, basically. Like, if they weren't going to do it last year, I wonder how many, if we asked people right now, how many people would be able to tell us who won March Madness last year? Do you think a good percentage of the audience would be able to win or be able to name the winner?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know.
Like, what, people lose interest after the craziness of the first couple rounds?
I think that pandemic era sports have been so bizarre. Like, I don't know what numbers March Madness did last year, as opposed to just not having it the way that it evaporated completely in 2020. But I don't know how many people were like as locked in on that, even though it was a fun final in the NCAAs. But Gonzaga, if they weren't going to be able to pull it off this past year, I don't know how much belief there is in them to be able to finish the job. It's probably the right answer, though, although Baylor, again, looks so good. I can't believe how – I don't know why, and maybe it's just people don't pay attention until tournament time. It felt like Baylor was despite their seeding, criminally underrated going into that game against Gonzaga last year.
Yeah, and they were head and shoulders the better team in that national championship.
It was wild to see the difference just athletically in the players for Baylor and Gonzaga and the way that they absolutely dominated. I mean, you've got carnage all over the board, though. Purdue fell the furthest among the top 10 teams. They went from number 4 to number 8. They lost Michigan State on the bubble right now at this point.
A buzzer beater, too.
Which, by the way, Tom Izzo on the bubble in March. Perfect. Nobody wants to see that guy. Auburn dropped 2 spots after the loss to Tennessee. They went from number 3 to number 5. Kentucky also down from 5 to 6. Villanova, Texas Tech out of the top 10 entirely after they suffered losses over the weekend as well. So in trying to figure out who's the favorite, I mean, the betting favorite right now seems to be in most sports books when you look around at these things. Gonzaga seems to be holding serve. I don't know why I can't get myself to trust them.
Because you haven't been able to in the past. And there's not a clear-cut challenger, right? Not a clear-cut singular challenger to be the favorite for the national championship. You can make an argument for Arizona and for Kentucky and for Auburn.
How good does that Arizona win look for Tennessee at this
fantastic
point?
Tennessee has been really fortunate in that some of their best wins have gotten better as the season has gone on. In Arizona and Kentucky, and even going back to the Colorado game they won in December, where Colorado is now pushing to be a tournament team out of the Pac-12.
So where is Tennessee's ceiling in all of this, I guess, is the question, right? Because they're at Georgia tonight. Their record against Georgia is completely perplexing.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a quirky thing that they haven't won in Athens in 10 years.
Because Georgia has had one solid year under Tom Crean.
Anthony Edwards, right?
Right. No, Anthony Edwards and I can't remember prior to Anthony Edwards.
They blitzed Tennessee in Athens with Anthony Edwards.
Well,
I remember that game very well.
This is the sport where one player can have just a monumental impact on your entire team. But at Georgia tonight on the SEC network, Tennessee holding serve, trying to make sure that they continue to finish strong as we get closer and closer to the SEC tournament in Tampa? ? Still not certain with that. And, of course, they finish at home against number 14 Arkansas after losing to Arkansas by 10 about a week ago at this point. So where their ceiling is right now, where they're not blowing people out offensively, but they do seem to be fairly efficient. They're getting more contributions from players players who I guess you don't expect it from. I don't know if that's because I don't know if it's fair to Brandon Huntley Hatfield to be my expectations are just kind of low for what he's going to give you on a nightly basis, and then he hits the clutch shot that starts your 17-2 run to help you close out a top 3 team in the country at home over the weekend. To get that kind of production from Zakai Ziegler consistently and to continue to get scoring off the bench just to continue to rebound the way that they are.
Yeah, Huntley Hatfield grew up. I feel like he grew up sort of right before our eyes in that Auburn game. They need him. They really need him down this stretch. The Olivier Nkamhoua injury, it's interesting what it's done to kind of bring out Huntley Hatfield and Jonas Aidoo and force them to have a role, right? It's no longer a luxury thing where your freshman 5-star big men need to give you minutes. Now they really need to give you minutes with that Olivier Nkamhoua. And so far they have. Huntley Hatfield was huge with 8 rebounds in that win Saturday.
Well, and that's basically been the formula that they've been trying to figure out without Nkamhoua. By the way, that video that they put out over the weekend on the Vol Hoops account of his mom coming to visit him because he's been kind of miserable while he's been injured and rehabbing and stuff. I got dusty. I got that. That was like a sports moment that got me.
Yeah, it was. With all the international players on this roster, I think they get a lot of those moments because Santiago Vescovi's family earlier this season was the same deal where they surprised him before a game from Uruguay.
Yeah, so you've been basically trying to figure out, all right, who's going to take advantage of the minutes because you lost 21 and a half minutes when Olivier Nkamhoua went down, and he was their most efficient field goal, by field goal percentage, their most efficient scorer, 49.7%. Not a ton of volume, but you miss those points, those minutes, and those contributions that he makes when he's on the floor, basically waiting for somebody to kind of fill that role and step up. Against Georgia tonight, I mean, they are obviously favored on the road by a strong percentage. Georgia's just been terrible. They're 6-23 this year.
One SEC win.
So bad. So Tennessee, if you're looking on DraftKings Sportsbook, favored by 15 on the road tonight. The over/under set at 145.5. I mean, I don't know that I would bet Tennessee. Georgia is just so wretched.
Well, they tripped up Alabama at home a couple of weeks ago. Really should have beaten Auburn. They blew that there at the end at home in just a slugfest against the Tigers. So, it's the SEC where Tennessee hasn't had a bad loss yet this season. I don't know if they're due one, but this is that last opportunity to finish the regular season without one single loss that you look at and you say, okay, that's a blemish on the resume.
Well, I mean, if their game, Georgia's game, what was that, 3 days ago against Florida was any indication, like Florida hit 14 3-pointers in the face. So Tennessee should be able to find similar success from range in this game tonight. But again, you can't, these are the kind of things where you're looking at a team at literally the bottom of the conference, 1-15 in conference play, and you're trying to figure out, all right, can they just cruise? Can they handle business? Can they take care of themselves against a clearly inferior team like they did not so long ago against Missouri after Arkansas kind of tripped them up on the road last week? There's zero indication that there would be anything from Georgia tonight that would derail this, but it is going to be an interesting game to watch to see how they finish their season outright with these final two remaining. I'm looking at the losses right now. By the way, Jerry Stackhouse, Vanderbilt's head coach, is going to join us, and we'll talk about SEC and where he thinks his team is basically held serve throughout the course of the season as they've tried to battle their way back into the standings to little avail at this point. But after they tripped up Alabama a couple of weeks ago, Vanderbilt started them on, I mean, it's going on what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 straight losses. Vandy was the first one here in Nashville, 85-77 over Georgia. It would be unthinkable to see Tennessee slip up against this kind of a team tonight. What are you making faces?
The proverbial trap game.
Trap games are real, man.
In basketball, they're a lot more real in college hoops than in the NFL.
I spent a whole football season railing about the idea that trap games don't exist in football, and then I get to basketball and I've seen Indiana lose too many games like Northwestern.
Yeah.
Not believe in trap games.
Not Northwestern, but like Northwestern Tech.
Right. What was the New Jersey Institute of Technology that was it Michigan a couple years ago? I don't know. This is why the tournament is great, because this is the time where you start to make stars out of college basketball players and teams, and Sister Jean, who's still kicking it on the sidelines for Loyola. It's Loyola of Chicago, still going to games. They're wheeling her out there. She's in her mask. She's ready to go. It's a whole thing. College basketball and March Madness is about to get really, really fun, and Lucas and I will take some time. I'm going to have a lot of free time on the drive up to Indianapolis today, so maybe we get together and figure out what a bracket challenge looks like. How do you feel about Tennessee's chances right now to be able to hold serve, close out their regular season in the SEC ahead of the tournament, the conference tournament coming up in Tampa? And who do you think the best team in college basketball is? We'll talk about that coming up next, and winners and losers of the sports weekend. Welcome back. Winners and losers of the weekend coming your way momentarily. We will open up the circus tent. I don't know why I get such a kick out of people who like live tweet the show. They don't even a lot of times they don't even tag us. It's just like a conversation that I notice because I follow some of the people that listen to the show on Twitter, and you're scrolling and there's highlights of Jon Morant that you're seeing all over the place, and things from Eddie O'Reilly, the Ukrainian-based Titans fan who has been making an incredible trip out of the country of Ukraine to get his family to safety. What are you holding up?
Who we will have on the show on Thursday, by the way.
Is that who you're DMing on my account?
Yes. I told you about this.
It's a bit. Play along. Yeah, so that'll be fun. Eddie will be on the show tomorrow. Anyway, so I'm scrolling, and then all of a sudden I get the V-Love. The mere mention of Sister Jean triggers the worst in me. I hate her. Which makes me laugh because 2018 seems like an eternity ago.
Yeah, it does.
Truly a lifetime ago. So I had either because of just time or brain fog or all of these different things that have passed since the tournament in 2018 when Loyola of Chicago and Sister Jean, this was on their their Sister Jean run.
Final Four.
The famous Sister Jean Final Four run, where the headline on this, because I went back and looked up some articles on the game, prayers answered again. Loyola tops Tennessee on late jumper. I had forgotten about this game. Tennessee was a 3 seed to Loyola of Chicago's 11 seed. Coming in there in the second round. That was the second round of the 2018 tournament, and just Loyola of Chicago stepping on Tennessee's neck to go to the Sweet 16 that year. That game was fun, man. That game was fun, but that had to really. That's one of those sports losses that stays with you.
Oh yeah, drops you to your knees in the moment.
Yeah,
just takes every breath out of you. That one hurt.
So 2018, you would have been in college.
I was finishing. Yeah,
finishing in Knoxville.
I graduated in May of 2018.
Okay, so did you actually fall to your knees in a college bar? Did you collapse?
Yeah. Oh yeah, every semblance of energy and emotion just departed my body, and my soul was hovering above my body, watching me on my knees, just head hanging down. Couldn't believe what had just happened.
All Sister Jean did was lead her team to the promised land, the Final Four, and you couldn't be happy for her.
that was the gut punch of all gut punches when that happened. Oh my goodness.
Okay, go ahead and open up the circus tent. Since we're talking about losers, let's do winners and losers from the weekend. Weekly tradition on Tuesdays. You open up the circus tent, you see what shenanigans took place this weekend in sports. A lot of winners and losers to be assigned. Who just went down that trap door that opened? I don't know, but we're going to find out here in just a second. Allow me to begin the proceedings. This is a rare one, a rare opportunity. I've gone back and forth on who would be my winner of the sports weekend, but I have to give it to FIFA. FIFA never on the right side of history, it would seem. Never on the right side of history. But a couple of days ago, yesterday they banned Russia from the 2022 World Cup after the invasion of Ukraine. Now, we haven't gotten into any serious societal discussions, even though probably more than any other show of the 4 shows, we're prone to public policy, given my family's background. But regardless, the World Cup, the field isn't set yet, but you know who's not going to be in it because FIFA brought down the hammer in a rare moment of moral vindication? Get out of here, Russia. Get out of here with your doping. Get out of here with your invasion of foreign countries just because they want to join NATO. Out of here. You will not be in the upcoming World Cup, according to the International Federation of Football.
They were 2 games away. They were in a playoff semifinal against Poland, needing to win that, and then a game after that to get in, and they won't have a chance.
Yeah, and it would have been interesting to see that, even during the Olympics, right? Because they continued to allow the ice skater to participate despite the doping. But yeah, winner of the weekend, the rare win for FIFA in this regard.
My winner of the weekend is SEC basketball, which suddenly is the class of college hoops. especially after last weekend when you continue to see the SEC's top be cannibalized by the third, fourth, fifth best teams in the conference. As for the Big 12, the class of the Big 12 remains Kansas and Baylor right at the top. But in the SEC, at this point, you could argue two national championship contenders in Kentucky and Auburn. I struggle to put Tennessee in that mix right now. It's March. Anything can happen. They've had good guard play. But the SEC is my winner of the weekend, despite the fact that two of the top six teams that lost Saturday were SEC teams. They did so to other SEC teams.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that we're sitting here looking at six teams basically guaranteed to get into the big dance, potentially seven. Florida's gotten hot as of late. We'll see what they do at the SEC tournament. But it's been a remarkable season for SEC hoops.
Loser of the sports weekend, and I just saw this headline on TMZ Sports. Gary Payton, who's apparently making the interview rounds. They're doing a really cool documentary on the Lakers on HBO. I saw that I'm interested to get my hands on whenever I get some spare time up in Indy this week. But Gary Payton was doing interviews, and he said that while he was Shaq's teammate 1 year with the Lakers and then 2 years with the Heat in the 2000s, apparently Shaq was big on rookie hazing. So rookies under Shaq would go to the bathroom in a bucket, quote, for about a week, and then dump it on unsuspecting rookies who were in stalls. He would pour it on them, Gary Payton said. Gary Payton didn't identify which rookies were on the receiving end of the disgusting, quote, unquote, prank. But Shaq is somebody who was big on rookie hazing and did it with, human excrement in ways that would definitely not be allowed.
Oh, my God.
Nowadays. Can you imagine?
Oh, man. I don't know how to top that. I think this might top it.
That made my stomach turn a little bit.
My loser of the weekend, this will make your stomach turn, is Hugh Jackson.
Oh.
After the news yesterday that Art Briles, by his own volition, has stepped down as the offensive coordinator at Grambling State. We discussed this briefly, I think, on Monday after this hire had been made.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackson put out a lengthy press release of a statement. Those have been common lately. Yesterday, defending the hiring of Art Briles, of course, the face of the sexual assault scandal surrounding Baylor football in 2015, 2016-ish when he was fired. This last paragraph of the statement from Hugh Jackson is what got me. As we move forward with Coach Briles, we ask that people keep in mind that no matter your views on this topic, please remember that people can and often do become re-traumatized and re-victimized by statements which may or may not be accurate. We will continue to support Coach Briles and all victims of assault, violence, social and racial injustices, and we will continue to provide equal opportunity for healing for everyone. I don't know what any of that means. In a feeble attempt to defend...
I'm not even mad at Art Briles. Like, I don't want to see Art Briles in charge of young people again, like just on face value. And I know that if you go back through the details of the case, the investigation into Baylor, that Briles was honestly cleared of a lot of what was being alleged against him and what people are still holding against him, right? There's a little bit of Greg Schiano at Tennessee stuff to it. Not the same thing, but there is some degree of that, okay? I felt myself almost feeling bad for Art Briles because I'm like, I'm not mad at Art Briles because he took a job that somebody offered him. I'm mad that Hugh Jackson is such a bonehead. Every time he tries to get out here publicly doing something, whether it's to try and be Brian Flores' ally in the middle of this basically tanking for money scandal that was in the lawsuit that Flores put together, or now botching everything about hiring Art Briles as your offensive coordinator. Hugh Jackson is just a clown. Just seems to be a clown to me.
Just falling flat on his face over and over. Grambling State, get out ahead of this. Go ahead and get rid of Hugh Jackson before he inevitably falls flat on his face with your football program.
Oh, well, So the cycle continues. Winners and losers of the sports weekend. When we come back, I want to get into a conversation about what's happening in the NFL right now. And as we get closer to the combine, what questions John Robinson and Mike Vrabel need to be asked. That's coming up next here on 104.5 The Zone.
It is 11:01. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. There is a new deadline for Major League Baseball to save opening day from being canceled after a 16-hour day of meetings on Monday. The MLB and MLBPA reportedly moved the deadline to reach a new collective bargaining agreement that would save regular season games from being canceled to today at 4 p.m. Central. Former Baylor head coach Art Briles informed Grambling State on Monday he would no longer be the school's offensive coordinator. This comes after backlash from the decision of head coach Hugh Jackson to hire Briles due to his firing from Baylor in 2016 following a campus-wide sexual assault investigation with a focus on the football program. Jon Morant continues to dazzle for the Memphis Grizzlies, going 22 of 30 on Monday and breaking his own franchise record for points in a regular season game with 52 in a 118-105 win over the San Antonio Spurs, including this buzzer beater before halftime with 0.4 seconds on the clock.
Adams going long. Morant! He hit it! Jon Morant, insanity!
That is Memphis Grizzlies television play-by-play voice Pete Pranica on the call. You can hear him on the Buck Reising Show coming up at 11:20. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 2 off and rolling. Welcome in on this Tuesday. Happy to have you guys along for the ride. 615-737-1045. Jump in if you like. We're here with you until 1 o'clock. We got Pete Pranica, voice of the Memphis Grizzlies, television personality, of course, play-by-play announcer. He's going to join us coming up in just about 15 minutes from now. Talk a little bit about what the Grizz are doing as the third best team in the Western Conference with arguably, what is Ja at this point as far as NBA stars are concerned?
Most exciting
player in the NBA. Over, the names that you normally associate with the most exciting player in the NBA. LeBron, Steph, KD, Harden right now, who is playing really, really well. Joel Embiid, who's probably the MVP. Ja, more exciting than all of those players.
I think so. Maybe there's a local bias there, but just the variety of what he puts out, even just as far as highlights, the way he makes the news for what he does on the floor, to me, supersedes what you see on a nightly basis from Steph Curry, who is an absolute alien. He's from another planet. But just the range of athleticism you see from Jon Morant on his biggest highlights are unlike anything I've seen in a really long time. I don't even know what a comparison would be.
So we'll talk about it with Pete Pranica, and by the way, former Memphis Grizzlies assistant and current Vanderbilt head basketball coach, men's basketball coach, Jerry Stackhouse, going to join us this hour as well. But in the meantime, we haven't talked much about the NFL and the Combine. John Robinson is going to be on the radio show tomorrow. Mike Vrabel is also going to be at the podium and will carry his press conference live for you since we will be in Indianapolis. Mel Kiper, who is, Mel Kiper is the standard when it comes to NFL pre-draft analysis. We have gotten, I think, progressively better about the scouting process. So many great resources out there, from the Draft Network to Dane Brugler at The Athletic. A lot of John Ledyard, our buddy who I know is going to be in Indy, is going to be on the radio show at some point this week. I should probably let him know that, but Giardi texted me. Mike Giardi of the NFL Network texted me yesterday, too, asking if I was going to be in Indianapolis, and I said yes. We're going to make – I honestly think we ought to make Giardi do, like, a little bit of a show with us while he's there. I think we should, for people who are asking for a Giardi podcast with me, I don't know about that, but we can have some fun up in Indy. Anyway, Mel Kiper's first mock draft is out. And with the first overall pick, it gets kind of wonky with the Jacksonville Jags because I had not seen previously anybody discussing the nickname is Ickey Ekwonu, the offensive tackle from North Carolina State. But Mel has him off the board as the overall number one selection. Aiden Hutchinson, Evan Neal from Michigan and Alabama, respectively, coming off in the top three. And then Kyle Hamilton, the Notre Dame safety, going 4 to the Jets. You got to scroll, obviously, to get to the Titans at 26, where he is currently projecting them to go wide receiver. Now, we spent a little time, I think at some point last week, maybe the week prior, talking about basically offseason priorities. You know, we went through the Harold Landry situation and the tag, the window still being open for them to be able to franchise tag Harold Landry. And you guys had Mike Giannitti of Spot Track on Blaine and Mickey yesterday, right? Talking about Harold Landry being the ideal tag candidate.
Yes.
Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, he called Harold Landry an ideal candidate for a tag. He said pay Jeffrey Simmons, and he said hold off on A.J. Brown.
Hold off on A.J. Brown. Interesting. Controversial statements from Mike Giannitti. So at this point, whether you're going to marry yourself to A.J. Brown or not, I would be inclined to disagree with Mike. But, you know, he's looking at this more objectively than I probably am. Got some local biases for sure. Jahan Dotson, the wide receiver out of Penn State, is who Mel thinks makes sense for the Titans. Now, we're going to see a bunch of different mocks. You're going to see a bunch of different names with a variety of different positions as we get closer to the end of April, which is, of course, when this thing goes down in Las Vegas. Julio being 33 years old, AJ being in a near contract situation and now officially eligible for an extension, as is that entire 2019 draft class. This offseason, they're eligible. So you got Julio, who's played 19 games in the last 2 years, 4 touchdowns total. Can you rely on him? Can you rely on A.J. Brown when the biggest hindrance to both of them has been their availability? Now, when they're on the field, A.J. at this point in his career is better. Julio still can have an impact, but again, the most important ability in football is availability. They need something in the form of an extra dimension for Ryan Tannehill, basically, as pass catchers. I thought it was ridiculous. I thought Mel's assessment that Calvin Austin III, the wide receiver out of Memphis, who could be a potential late first-round selection, I don't think you can go in the first round with that guy. Respectfully, I think he's got. There was nobody in Mobile at the Senior Bowl when I was down there for a week that created more organic separation, basically, because he's just so damn fast. I mean, you're talking about somebody who could run a sub 440 this week at the combine. But again, straight line speed isn't the most important thing. Play speed, at least for this Titans offense, is. Now, at some point, you do need some element of straight line speed to make the defenses have to change the way that they play you. But Calvin Austin III in the first round is not somewhere that I would look. I love the idea of Jahan Dotson, though. He is a special player out of Penn State. He's been really, really successful there in that system, and I think he could be a nice complement alongside A.J. and Julio in some capacity, right? With Nick Westbrook-Akina as a restricted free agent as your wide receiver 4. Wouldn't that be a perfect world? If you could get NWI to play a more natural position as a reserve and benefit from your top skill position players, because that was the whole reason this offense was supposed to take off, because of the collection of skill position players that they currently had on the roster. Now, tight end still remains a situation, and basically the question that I want to ask John Robinson, again, he'll be on the radio show with us tomorrow live in Indy. He'll speak at the Combine, I think, right after he comes on with us. So John will be on the radio show, and then he'll go over to the podium, and he will be first, and then Vrabel second, if I saw my schedule correctly for this. Basically, I want to know is how much are you prioritizing the need for offensive skill position players? Because last year, we all thought this was going to be the case as well. And then you end up with no tight ends drafted, the collection of tight ends that played throughout the course of the season for you, which were less than desirable. and maybe it's just doing the analysis in retrospect, but Des Fitzpatrick, barring some kind of, significant leap this year, he's not cracking your top 4 as a 4th-round draft pick, a dude that you traded up for. So with all that being said, there's going to be scrutiny on when Jon chooses to address skill position, tight end, wide receiver. And I don't think they would be out of their minds to take a running back this year as well. Obviously not in the, maybe not day 1 or day 2, depending on who ends up being there. But like at some point you have to prepare for life after Derrick Henry. And this being the third of the 4-year contract, this would be the time to start trying to figure out contingency plans should something happen, God forbid. But that's basically the biggest question that I have for Jon tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to getting up there, getting around the prospects, seeing how people are talking about them, seeing what's really changed from my notes at the Senior Bowl, and then we'll begin to discuss where they can really start to hone in on in the offseason. When we come back, Pete Pranica of Bally Sports is going to join us. He is the television face and voice of the Memphis Grizzlies, and he has been treated to a first-class show the last 2 seasons. We're a little late to the bandwagon, but we're going to talk about Jon Morant next.
Adams going long. Morant. Oh, he hit it. He hit it. Jon Morant, insanity.
Man, that was an incredible game last night. That's our guy Pete Pranica on the call. Jon Morant and the Grizzlies, 118-105 over the San Antonio Spurs, 52 for number 12. Pete, we've been on the air for almost a year, coming up on Thursday. This is the first time that we've had you on our show. It's deeply embarrassing for me. Thank you so much for giving us some time.
No problem. No problem. All you have to do is call and invite, and I'm always good to go for my friends in Nashville. I'm just sorry I haven't gotten to a Predators game because of the schedule, but I look forward to getting to Bridgestone in early April and seeing a game there.
In the meantime, you got plenty of entertainment to keep you occupied, Pete. Like I feel like people, Nashville and Memphis always kind of have this situation where Nashville's going to pay inherently more attention to the Predators. Obviously, Memphis going to pay attention more to the Grizzlies throughout the course of their respective seasons. But every time I'm scrolling through the channels and I see a Grizz game on, I tune in because Ja is so singular in what he provides as far as entertainment value. He's the most entertaining player in a Grizzlies uniform for you since who?
Ever.
Ever.
I mean, really. Yeah, I mean, you think of all the great Grizzlies players. And, I did the Mike Miller 45-point game in Golden State, which was the record until Saturday night. And that was Mike just hitting a bunch of threes. And the crowd in Oakland, they would ooh and ah every time he touched the ball. But that was one game. This is every game, and I tweeted it out this morning, that when the ball is in his hands, conversation ceases, you put your beer down because you may end up spilling it because he does something crazy like he did last night. And they're just – there hasn't been a player with that level of electricity in franchise history. And right now in the current NBA, he is definitely at the top of the list. I mean, a lot of great players in our league, but the element of excitement and dynamism and athleticism that he brings to his game, I can't think of anybody else in the league right now that can match it.
More impressive play last night when he just absolutely dunked over a 7-footer or hit the buzzer beater before half. The just freakish pass that he caught from Steven Adams to hit that buzzer beater in midair. I don't know how the hell he did that, Pete.
I have no idea. I have zero idea. To me, that's the more impressive play because physically, he's straining the laws of physics to catch release in one motion while he's in midair. We've seen him dunk over 7-footers before. Just ask Aaron Baines of Phoenix back in the day.
Right.
So he's done that before. We've seen that. But this dunk, you look at it, he takes off with his foot right on the lane line. He's barely in the paint, and he takes off and flies in on a 7-footer. That was the dunk that he's been trying to hit for ever since he tried to jump over Kevin Love, and it was just fantastic. And poor Jakob Poeltl, he can't stay with him, with foot speed, and Ja was blowing by him, and then physically Ja just came over the top and dropped the hammer, and it was the crowd exploded, and the atmosphere inside FedEx Forum last night was very much like a playoff game, and that buzz was great to have in the building.
TV voice of the Memphis Grizzlies, Pete Pranica, is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Of course, you can catch him on Bally Sports every time the Grizz play. So at this point, with what Ja is, and I know it's not just about him, there's been so many good things about the Grizzlies season throughout the course of this, Pete, and where they've ended up in the Western Conference in the top 3. I know that it's not just Ja, but I guess I'm trying to get people more invested in NBA here in Nashville. I love watching this guy, and I wonder from your perspective how important he is just as an ambassador for the brand of the Grizzlies as you guys continue to try and grow the fan base with an incredible player unlike few that we have in the league right now.
Yeah, this team had gone through years where they were out of the playoffs and the core 4 ended up in different places, and that's to be expected. And now, the the marketing slogan is Grizz Next Gen, and that's exactly what it is. It's a group of younger players. Look, by average age, this is the second youngest team in the NBA. Think about that for a minute.
I saw that Ja was 22 today, and it just made me want to smack myself in the face. That really hurt me.
Yeah, but yeah, he's been great for the city. His comments at the All-Star game: everything I do for Memphis. Memphis fits Ja. Ja fits Memphis. Memphis sometimes is an underdog. Ja feels he's an underdog, very lightly recruited coming out of high school. Played, for Murray rather than, one of a big SEC or ACC school. So, it's a perfect fit. And what is great about Ja is he's a quality person, gives a lot of credit to his teammates. His teammates love playing with him. And, anybody that saw some of the coverage last night, you saw the team picture. He's making sure everybody is in that picture at the end of the game before he did his walk-off interview. And he's a great teammate. He has a phenomenal basketball IQ where he can recall plays and what all 10 guys did at any one time on a particular play. And you pair that with incredible athletic talent and a burning desire to be the absolute best in the world. You get yourself one heck of a basketball player when you combine all that. And Memphis clearly is totally going to embrace it because Memphis is a great basketball city, always has been, very basketball savvy, and they are appreciating the brilliance and genius that is Jon Morant.
Pete Pranica, kind enough to give us some of his time here talking about the Grizzlies. 43-20 after last night's win over the San Antonio Spurs, third best team in the Western Conference right now, and just an incredible entertainment source for you right now in the absence of football. And as basketball starts to get ramped up with March Madness and what's happening with the Nashville Predators, make sure you're checking out what's happening on Bally Sports anytime the Grizz play because it is so much fun. Pete, thanks for stopping by, man. We appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That's Pete Pranica, the TV voice of the Memphis Grizzlies. Most entertaining player Pete's ever seen in a Grizzlies uniform. And, he sounds, I understand Pete's probably got a little bias there, but he sounds like he's in your camp of one of the most, if not the most exciting players in the NBA right now.
Yeah, Pete's seen some good ones.
Pete has seen some good ones. He's averaging 27.6 points per game. He's making almost half of his shots. Like, he's efficient, he's athletic, he's insanely talented. And, like I saw his comments post-game where he's talking about he's more thankful for his teammates. And, they have done well to build around him, right? Steven Adams has been a big, not just physically, but a legitimately big piece for them to add as they try and figure out how to best maximize this player. Kyle Anderson has been consistently solid for them. Tyus Jones in the minutes that he gets. And Dylan Brooks, while he can be streaky as a shooter, you've seen some real growth and development there. They get good contributions out of their role players. Guys like Brandon Clark and, Triple J is good when he's healthy, obviously. But, man, I truly enjoy watching the Grizzlies. And I hope that people are paying attention to him right now. Do we have the audio of Steven Adams discovering what a Tennessee accent sounds like for the first time? Steven Adams, who looks like, he looks like I don't even know what he looks like. He looks like some kind of Viking, pirate with his long hair and his mustache. He's from New Zealand. He seems to be a delightful human being. And he was being asked press conference questions, not after last night's game. I think it was after the previous game that the Grizzlies had played. And he basically heard, I think, a Tennessee accent for the first time. Go ahead, Lucas.
The overall, you talk about the growth with Brandon Clark and Jaren's defensive games. Y'all's as a trio, a big.
Where are you from, bro?
Oh, I'm from Tennessee.
Oh, that's a sick accent, bro. I haven't heard that before. That's awesome, dude. That's sick.
I appreciate the kind. I'm a fan of yours as well. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you, sir.
Cheers, mate. Sorry, mate. Go ahead.
He just seems truly delighted. Now,
yeah,
what
the smile that creeps over his face when the reporter starts asking a question.
So, East, Middle, West Tennessee, where's that accent from?
Got to be East. Gotta be.
Yeah.
That's a Maynardville accent.
Maynardville.
Yeah.
Is it Maynardville or Maynardville?
Maynardville. Yeah,
Maynardville.
I guess that would be the appropriate.
That's what I've discovered is I've been saying my vills
Sure.
I've been emphasizing my vills too much for too long. It's the better part of a decade now I've lived in this state. So Nashville, Maynardville.
That's awesome.
It's very wholesome.
Yes, it is.
The reporter gets shook. He's like, he's not used to somebody complimenting his accent. Steven Adams, just a giant friendly human being
With a nice accent of his own.
I honestly, I think I would probably be, Steven Adams has sounded that way his entire life, but I would probably, Tennessee accents are great. New Zealand, pretty solid, though. Pretty solid. You like to see it. 615-737-1045. Jump in if you like. Jerry Stackhouse, head coach of the Vanderbilt men's basketball program, is going to join us, a former Grizzlies assistant himself, though he did not coach Ja. Be curious to see if Coach Stackhouse has been paying attention to the league right now. I know he's caught up in the middle of a season, but if he ever feels the urge to flip on an NBA game from time to time, see what's happening, as somebody who spent so much time in the league himself. I guess as we kind of look at Vandy and what their schedule remaining, they've got a big game coming up against Florida tonight. Well, it's a bigger game for Florida, right? Because Florida still is in this in-the-bubble conversation. Vandy at 14-14, 11th in the SEC, is not going to be able to squeak into the tournament. So that's 3 straight years for Jerry Stackhouse without a tournament appearance, which is, of course, below the standard for Vanderbilt basketball. But there have been some mitigating circumstances for Coach Stackhouse in the early part of his tenure here so far. So they got Florida tonight, 7:30 tip at home on the SEC Network, by the way, and then they finished their season with a familiar face, Kermit Davis at Ole Miss, on the 5th this week before we get into conference tournament play. Vandy, man, I've gone back and forth on this, right? Because it feels so harsh to have talked about Vanderbilt and Scottie Pippen Jr.'s season in the sense of, well, they've not been able to capitalize on this truly, truly special player. And how much, where to kind of assign blame, or how much blame to assign, just based on what they don't necessarily have around him right now. Different kind of conversation to get into. But I'd be curious to find out from Coach Stackhouse how he would kind of, if he's willing to self-reflect in season, understanding that the season is not yet done, that they can still do some things and make this feel a little better in Tampa next week in the SEC tournament. Because it's not like they haven't been run off the court by any stretch of the imagination. I'm looking at their they've had one double-digit loss basically in the last month and a half, and that was to Auburn, at Auburn, as the number 2 team in the country a couple of weeks ago, or just about 10 days ago at this point. Obviously, they lost to Tennessee in Knoxville, but they've held their own against competitive basketball teams. They've been able to do some damage against teams like LSU. They took advantage of both their games against Georgia, which is smart as far as what they've been able to do in conference. But at this point, 6-10 in SEC play it's just not going to cut it when the conference is as competitive as it is right now. And I'm not saying anything that Jerry Stackhouse and his staff and Vanderbilt doesn't know, but I wonder how, if he's willing to contextualize that while he's still in the middle of this thing. I'd be curious to see what his kind of reflections on this are.
Well, you're still playing for a first-round bye in the SEC tournament. You're still playing to get into the postseason. Vanderbilt hasn't had postseason basketball since 2016-17, and I think the NIT would be a step for this program with how low they were under Bryce Drew going winless in SEC. Baby steps, right? Get to the NIT, got to get above 500 record to do that. They're 500 right now. So these next 2 games are big for Vanderbilt. There's a lot to play for here for that team.
And I think most people would just kind of casually glance at Vandy's record if they haven't been following them all season and be like, oh, well, this is starting to peter out. But I absolutely agree with you, given the depths that we saw them at, and really the inexplicable way that the Bryce Drew thing just kind of blew up. That was so bizarre for me to watch. I don't know why I felt that would go substantially better than it did, and you had some obvious recruiting success before injuries started to rob you of anything legitimate that you were going to be able to do. But for Jerry Stackhouse's team right now, they absolutely have postseason basketball on the line. And to just take that step, I think it would be comforting to a lot of people who care about that program and know that program to be above the place that it's been in the last basically 5 years.
I think the NIT would jump to have a player like Scottie Pippen Jr. out of an SEC program play in their tournament.
Oh, yeah.
See if they can make a run. Get to New York.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it for them. I'd love to see it for him. I would really, really enjoy seeing Vanderbilt, be able to get forward momentum and to finish, right? Just finish. You got 2 games, 2 winnable games. If you're Vandy, left on the horizon, looking at Florida at home tonight and finishing at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is really kind of petered out as well. 13-16 right now. They're below Vanderbilt in the conference standings, 4-12 this year in the SEC. So Kermit Davis having some struggles of his own. But for Vanderbilt to be able to capitalize and finish these final 2 games with postseason basketball, even if it's not March Madness, true postseason basketball on the line, I think that would matter to a great many people who are trying to give themselves hope and confidence about the trajectory of Vanderbilt basketball under Jerry Stackhouse. Again, understanding that nobody would be able to necessarily plan for the kind of injuries that they've had, and frankly, for a pandemic being dropped in the middle of your tenure. Like, that's a big part of this too.
Talk about highs and lows, man, with Bryce Drew. To reel in the best recruiting class in program history and then go to the worst season in program history with the Darius Garland injury mixed in. The program's been through probably more than people give credit for in the last 5 years.
Well, and it's incumbent upon people like us to talk about it, right? Like, I think there's just been a general lack of discussion. So I'm really glad that Coach Stackhouse agreed to come on, because he doesn't typically do, or at least local radio. I don't see him a lot on local radio.
Appreciate him doing that on a game day too.
Sure. So we'll talk to Coach Jerry Stackhouse of the Vanderbilt men's basketball team coming up next. Welcome back on this Tuesday. Buck Reising here with you until 1 o'clock. Jump in if you like, 615-737-1045. Taking your calls on Titans and Combine stuff here in just a minute. In the meantime, we're getting ready to talk some college hoops with Vanderbilt coach Jerry Stackhouse, who is going to call into the show here in just a moment. Big opportunity for the Commodores in their last two games, as we discussed. A massive game coming up tonight over on West End, hosting Florida, 7:30 p.m. tip, SEC Network, before they finish their season at Ole Miss and try and keep this thing alive for postseason aspirations. We're really looking forward to catching up with Coach Stackhouse and talk about the health of the league right now and how his team has been able to kind of gut this thing out over the course of the season. Coach Jerry Stackhouse joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. Coach, I appreciate it on a game day, man, no less. This is really kind of you.
You know, man, it's March, man. We got the fever. That's all good. Happy to be on.
I'm saying, I'm dying to talk college hoops. We don't get near enough of it. Everything gets swallowed up by football. But today of all days, it has to be a college hoops day.
No doubt, man. We're excited, and great point in the season for us. Where first couple of years in our building process, we hadn't been at this juncture where we were playing for anything, and now we're playing for a winning season, playing for some momentum going into the tournament, man. So possible postseason berth. Right now we're on the border for the NIT, maybe do something special and get a little more. So, man, it's an exciting time for us for sure.
There's no question about that. And that growth, I mean, it has been – I know coaches don't make excuses, players don't make excuses, but when you guys got to this program as a staff, it's been through some rocky seasons, basically, and the growth that you guys have experienced, even as I'm sure there have been points this season that have been tough, whether you're dealing with injuries or just how brutal the SEC schedule is as of late. For you guys to get to this position with the opportunity to capitalize against great opponents like Florida and Ole Miss to finish the season, what are you most proud of your guys for being able to get to this point?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just proud of just their perseverance, man. Through it all, because it was, again, we could easily point at a lot of different things, but I just feel like all of our guys, if you ask them to a man, we've had enough. A lot of the shortcomings that we've had, the losses that we had, a lot of things that we did in those games were kind of self-inflicted. It was things that we just could have controlled ourselves. Yeah, you can have a game where a call don't go your way, or you didn't get the breaks. But I think us not making our breaks got us to this point right now where we're still fighting, which is a good thing, as opposed to having a little bit more comfort going into the tournament. Possibly even being a tournament team. We know that there are multiple games out there that could boost our resume that we had a good chance to win, but things didn't go our way. And at the same time, we know that, in the big picture, those incremental, success when we look back at things, but we're still, pretty doggone disappointed that we haven't closed out some of those close ones, especially the ones we had recently.
Well, certainly a tremendous opportunity coming up at home tonight, hosting Florida. Of course, you can catch that over on West End or on the SEC Network, 7:30 p.m. is the tip.
Come on over to the West End. We need it tonight. We're blacking out in there tonight. Come on over.
There you go. If you got nothing else to do on a Tuesday night, and even if you do, it's March. Get in the spirit. College basketball. This is going to be a great game because Florida, Jerry, obviously has a lot to play for too. The SEC is stacked this year. There's going to be a bunch of teams in the main bracket, but Florida is still kind of fighting for their tournament lives. What do you expect to see tonight from that squad?
Yeah, man, I just think it should be two desperate teams. I mean, for what we're fighting for and what they're fighting. We had pretty much identical records 2 games ago, and they, found a way to go down to Georgia and get them a win. We didn't, so they're sitting at around 8-8. So it's a big game for us. We still got a chance to possibly finish with the same record as them. So it's just, it's fun. Like I said, at this point of the year, it's almost like the tournament, which is a week or so away, is starting earlier, where we're still fighting and clawing to have a bye, something we haven't had since we've been here, and have a chance to go down there and kind of get acclimated for a day and not play on the first day, even though us, Pat padding our resume with some more games isn't the worst thing, but it's just Florida, they're playing well. They're shooting the three extremely well right now, so we got to get out there and guard them. And Castleton's a handful. Down low, I think Mike White does a good job with that group, man. So it should be a test. They handled us pretty good down there last time. Scotty got into foul trouble early, didn't really play well that whole game. So I know he has a little bit of a get back in his mind. So we're should be a fun atmosphere there tonight.
Scottie Pippen Jr. with a little extra motivation and juice is must see without question. I'm looking just at the schedule throughout the course of the year, Coach, and what the SEC has been. It really has never felt this healthy as a league in this sport in a way that we are accustomed to the SEC dominating sports in general, particularly college football. But the ringer that you guys go through when you play in this league, how much has that helped your team kind of understand the level that they have to elevate themselves to, and how much they've been able to fight and claw in these games, even if the result hasn't come out the way that you've wanted it to?
Yeah, I just think, it's great, man, from top to bottom. Like, there's no easy night anywhere. Obviously, our top teams in the league are performing well, not only in our league, but nationally. So I think from that standpoint, our guys know that we've gone into all these places and had chances to win. Again, like I said, just maybe a lack of execution, turnovers, or just the ball didn't bounce your way on some of those nights. But we had opportunities to win all of those games. So I think that gives us tremendous confidence to know that we could go to Auburn and fight in Illinois, Kentucky, all those places. It'd be good to be on the other side of it some, and we've had some of those, like going down to Arkansas. We're the only team to beat them in Bud Walton this year. So we've had some big moments, but the tournament's going to be unbelievable. But I think our guys have the confidence now that we've added Liam, who we didn't have in a lot of those games. He gives us a different aspect that we have still. Unfortunately, we're out Rodney Chapman. Hopefully we may be able to get him back by the tournament, which gives us the first time to look like our whole team all year. But still, with that said, we've had our opportunities, and it's gotten us to this point to where we're still fighting and clawing for something here at the end.
Vandy men's basketball coach Jerry Stackhouse is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. As you've kind of worked your way through who's available and who's not all season long, Coach, I know it's a team game, but Scotty, his consistency as far as what he's able to give you on a night-by-night basis. It's his fourth 30-point game in your guys' loss to Mississippi State, and his fifth straight game with 20 points. Just how does he get himself to that level where he can continue to maintain this?
Yeah, I just think he's super smart. Obviously I think we run a system that kind of showcases his talent where he has the ball. He probably has, as much usage of anybody in the country where he's able to, make plays. Sometimes it kind of hampers him later in games where he gets a little fatigue and has some mistakes. But, man, he gives us a chance every night. I think between him and Quentin Millard-Brown, those are, our MVPs of the season, no question. I think Scotty from an offensive standpoint and Quentin from a defensive standpoint are just kind of anchoring it, holding the fort down, and just a battler, man. The way that kid's improved over these last couple of years, to when he got here from Rice, he wasn't even he wanted to find out was he able to play at this level. And
right.
I think he's shown it that he's more than capable of playing at this level and playing at a high level. I honestly feel like he should be all defense, in our league. But and Scotty as well. Scotty's really picked it up a notch on the defensive end as well. But just what he does for us and on the offensive end, try to find a way to get him a few minutes. But when I pull him out there, I seem like I got to get him back out there fast. So, that's kind of the dilemma with it. Want to try to keep him fresh, but at the same time, man, he does so much for us.
Well, it's going to be cool to see the way you guys finish out your season. Florida tonight, get over to Memorial Gym, 7:30 tip over here on West End. It's going to be a lot of fun. Coach Jerry Stackhouse, thanks so much for the time, Coach. We do appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me, man. Thank you. All right.
That's Coach Jerry Stackhouse there with us on 104.5 The Zone. If I didn't have primetime, man, I would be at that game. I'm dying to see Scottie Pippen play at home. and to see this Vanderbilt team. I'm fascinated by it. It drives me crazy. The primetime show is a lot of fun, but having it at 8 p.m. every night when there's events like this, it does. That's the only time when it feels like a burden. And also, I'm going to Indianapolis tonight, which I just recalled in my head. But if you're not going up to Indy like I am, or if you don't have to work at 8 p.m. Central Time like I do, get over to Memorial Gym. Go watch this guy play. It's going to be a lot of fun. Desperation in sports is great, and both of these teams are desperate for two different reasons.
Especially in basketball.
When we come back, we're going to give you a preview of the 2022 NFL Combine. John Robinson, Mike Vrabel, questions they need to be asked, positions to watch, and 4 prospects I think you in particular need to be paying attention to for your team. That's next.
It is 12:01. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica. There's a new deadline for Major League Baseball to save opening day from being canceled after 16 hours of deliberating on Monday. The MLB and MLBPA reportedly moved the deadline to reach a new collective bargaining agreement that would save regular season games from being canceled to today at 4 p.m. Central. That's coming up in about 4 hours. Opening day in the MLB currently slated for March 31st. College baseball this afternoon. Tennessee is 7-0 and has moved up to number 11 in the USA Today baseball coaches poll. The Vols will host ETSU at Lindsey Nelson Stadium with a 5:30 first pitch. Fifth-ranked Vanderbilt also at home at 5-2, playing host to Central Arkansas. First pitch at Hawkins Field is at 4:30. Number 13, Tennessee, back on the road today on the hardwood with only 2 games remaining in the regular season slate before the SEC tournament. The Vols will take on 6-23 Georgia, the last place team in the SEC. Tennessee has not won in Athens since 2011. Tip-off tonight is at 5:30. Catch the Vol Network coverage. Tip-off tonight at 6. Catch the Vol Network coverage right here on 104.5 The Zone. Vanderbilt looking to get back above 500 at home against Florida tonight. Tip-off from Memorial Gym is 7:30 on the SEC Network. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour, welcome in to 104.5 The Zone. Happy to have you here for just one more before we head up to Indy. Take the show on the road. 615-737-1045. Jump in if you like. Heading up to Indianapolis for the NFL Combine, which we are getting ready to discuss here in just a moment. The question for you is this. What position are you most focused on heading up to the Combine? We can get into that in just a moment. But first and foremost, Lucas is telling me in my ear that I have things to give away. In fact, I have Garth Brooks tickets to give away. The most electrifying, explosive, and mesmerizing musical force in North America returns to the state of Tennessee.
Electric flying. I like that.
Listen, I'm trying to read the copy. All right, back off.
I think I found a new play-by-play term.
The most electrifying. Yeah, that's a tough one for people who speak for a living. Electrifying. The most electrifying, explosive, and mesmerizing musical force in North America returns to the state of Tennessee. How about that? Garth Brooks is bringing his stadium tour back to Nissan Stadium on Saturday, April the 16th, and we have your chance to win tickets before you can buy them. If you are caller number 5 right now, you can be entered for your chance to win tickets to see the Garth Brooks Stadium Tour at Nissan Stadium. The tickets officially go on sale this Friday at 10 a.m. Central Time at Ticketmaster.com. 615-737-1045. You're caller number 5. You get to go see Garth Brooks. That's cool. I think we're doing that on all 4 shows this week. So you can, if you did not win the tickets today, the other 2 shows after us will have the opportunity to get you the chance to win those tickets. I actually went to the Garth Brooks, or what was supposed to be the Garth Brooks show. I think this is sometimes during football season. A couple of buddies of mine texted me and said that they were planning on coming down. Would I like to go? And I'm not like an overwhelmingly country music fan, but Garth Brooks is different, right? Garth Brooks is a massive, massive event, major performer, would put on an incredible show. And so I was like, all right, I'll go. I think it'd be a great time. So we had tickets on the field in the way that they have it set up, like the Garth Brooks stage is at midfield, if you're looking at the Titan Stadium, and they fill in the rest of the field surface with chairs and people who can sit, and they have, of course, the pit in front, or whatever you want to call it. What do you call the GA, like general admission? I don't know if there's a proper term for right in front of the stage.
Oh, that is not GA. That is the opposite of GA.
What is
the most expensive ticket in the building?
Okay, well, let's not get me into a situation where I can't identify what the proper term for nosebleeds is again, or something like that.
So you were at the first Garth Brooks experience?
Yeah, the one that got monsooned.
Right. I was out at the end downtown watching our buddy Joshua Clay rocking out with his band on that night.
Oh, yeah? The reveal?
Yeah.
They put on a good show.
They do. They're
probably
fun,
would have been a better spent time going to see the reveal. In fact, I'm certain it was, because I ended up, huddled under the concrete structures, like under the 300 and suite level structures in the main concourse at Nissan Stadium with 70,000 of my not closest friends.
Yeah, we were dry.
We were not. I'm telling you, I have never been that miserable in my life. Because my buddies were wanting to hold out. They're like, let's just stay down here, even though there's a lightning delay and literally the thunder is about to roll over our faces and just like zap us in real time. I tried so hard because I had told them as soon as I started to like get notifications on the Weather Channel app, I'm like, I'm leaving. I'm not staying for this. You can't. I'm not even willing to sit for one hockey period in the lower bowl because it's kind of chilly outside. You're not keeping my ass out here in the rain. You're nuts. So right when I called my Uber was when they said basically we had to shelter in place in Nissan Stadium. Like you weren't getting out or getting in. And the Ubers certainly weren't getting there because it was a straight up monsoon. By the way, who won the tickets? Because people are still calling, so we should tell them who won the tickets so they can call back at another time.
Kerry Sessions won the tickets. Congrats to Kerry. Says he loves the show. Has the same area code as me from Birmingham, Alabama. So enjoy Garth Brooks, Kerry.
Well, that's a deep betrayal of trust because now you've given at least 3 of the digits of his phone number out to the local radio audience. Bravo.
Good luck guessing the other 7.
I mean, listen, people are getting hacked all the time, right? Don't test it. Don't test it. Bravo out of you. So, yeah, Garth Brooks, I mean, maybe I'll give it another go on April 16th, but you can listen to the radio station for the rest of the day for your opportunity to hear how you can win tickets in the future. Again, tickets on sale March the 4th at Ticketmaster.com. So, congratulations to Kerry. As we sit here today, before we get ready to road trip up to Indy, and I'm going to be up there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the A to Z Sports primetime show I'm going to do tonight, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday night from Indianapolis at 8 p.m. So you can tune in for that as well. But at this point, there's a lot of different angles to the NFL Combine that I'm fascinated by because we know what the situation is for this year's draft class, right? We know that the quarterbacks are not going to carry the day in ways that we are accustomed to, right? There have been, in each of the last probably 4 or 5 draft classes, like at least 3 top-tier quarterbacks who you knew were going to go to a franchise and at least give them the opportunity to be a franchise quarterback, right? Even if you were out on Mitch Trubisky, which, by the way, ended up being the correct assessment, Mitch Trubisky still made the postseason twice as the Chicago Bears quarterback, even though he was not the primary reason for their success. So I don't know what's going to happen at the quarterback position. I know that for the Titans, theoretically, you could see one of these guys fall to 26, but that's not the best use of your draft capital right now. The best use of your draft capital in the first round is always best player available. Don't draft for need, or at least this would be my strategy. And I think you talk to enough NFL evaluators, you would get a similar response that in the first round, basically, drafting for need is one thing if you're at the very, very top and the choice is obvious among the quarterbacks. But, we're talking about quarterbacks this year. We may see one guy in the top 10, provided that people don't overdraft. So this offseason rather, for teams who are looking for quarterback help, this is not going to be the year that you're going to find it. But for the Titans and the prospects that they need to be focused on, the positions, to be more specific, you're talking about wide receiver, you're talking about tight end, and you're talking about offensive line. If Harold Landry leaves for whatever reason, then you begin the discussion about, okay, how are you going to supplement what you already have on your defensive line? But the first 3 priorities in this NFL draft, in no particular order, tight end, wide receiver, offensive line, because you know you're going to need help immediately at all three of those levels. I'm curious to know what position you're most interested in this draft, because we're talking about, we could see the first two players in this NFL draft be offensive linemen. If it's not Aiden Hutchinson, it could be two offensive linemen off the board first. It could be two defensive linemen off the board first. All I know is it's not going to be a quarterback at this juncture. Lucas, you said you had a question for me in my ear?
Is there no indication whatsoever about the Jags potentially trading that pick? Like, is the overwhelming consensus that they are going to take somebody at number one?
If that exists, if that conversation exists, this is the week that it starts to become more real.
Yeah.
I guess is probably the best way that I can answer that question.
I haven't heard any of that.
You won't until this week.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is the time of year because Mobile is different, right? You're just starting to get NFL teams have obviously started prioritizing. They have entire scouting staffs prioritizing draft and prospects and things of this nature all year long, right? So it's not like they're just getting their feet under them at Mobile. But once you get through the most recent college football season, once you start to put your boards together, as Coach Mack will tell you, Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio, he will tell you what an involved process that can become. While everybody is together in Mobile, conversations start to be had about the prospects themselves. While everybody is in this year, for the final year, it would seem, Indianapolis for the combine, agents, players, coaches, scouts. This is where you start to see those true draft trade conversations start to materialize, as well as the bones of free agent deals and negotiations and free agent discussions, because everybody is hanging out in hotel bars in the lobbies of their hotels around the Indiana Convention Center while they basically bide their time until their player or the player that they're there to watch runs the 40 or does the vertical, right? So we'll see what happens with the Jags. It would make sense, right? Unless you are so hell-bent on, oh my God, Trevor Lawrence is going to fail if we don't get him the offensive lineman that he needs.
Yeah.
Because that's it. You can't let that guy. He got worse. He got so much worse over the course of his rookie year.
Yeah,
that can't happen.
Anytime you have a team that does not have a quarterback need with the number one pick, I feel like those conversations are inevitable.
Yeah.
To materialize.
We'll get into some more specific conversations about the prospects here in just a second. First, let's go to Howard, who's in Murfreesboro, wants to chime in on this Tuesday. Hello, Howard.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
We're doing well, thank you.
Hey, I just wanted to comment on the lack of Memphis Grizzlies coverage that we get from not only this station, but just Middle Tennessee, or any sports station.
Now, wait, Howard, before you get into it, how much of the show have you listened to today?
I just got in my car. Have you talked about the Grizzlies today?
We had Pete Pranica on in the second hour. I opened with Ja and Jerry Stackhouse, the Vanderbilt coach who used to be a Grizzlies assistant. We've talked almost 2 hours of Ja today.
You talked 2 hours about Ja.
Damn near.
Well, we need to see that a lot more often.
Well, he needs to, if he has a 52-point game again, I'll spend 2 hours on Ja. I got you.
No, come on now. What's the deal with the disdain with Memphis in this area?
Oh, buddy. That's a question for the audience, Howard. I love basketball. Basketball is my favorite sport. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't.
It's your show. You should cover it.
No, that's not how that. Howard, you know that's not how it works. It's not about what I want to talk about. It's what people want to hear about. You know that.
You're the personality. You're the talent. Come on, man. You can get these things done.
I appreciate your confidence in me, Howard. Thank you for the call. We have a podcast. There's lots of Ja talk there. Now it's time for the Combine. We'll do that next. Oh, I'm looking forward to this road trip up north, which is not something I normally say. But there's something about the combine, especially when it's been taken away from you. Because this is like, nobody cares about the combine except like NFL media people for like the actual event. Like nobody looks forward to this thing the way that NFL media people do, because it's like spring break for football, which is going to be a great time. Also, the famed St. Elmo's shrimp cocktail on my horizon at, I think it's 6:30 p.m. tomorrow in Indianapolis, which I'm looking forward to taking advantage of. A couple of tweets. Chris Barnes tweets us, not only am I the talent, as the caller put it, but you are also the villain. Jon Morant has been a lot of fun to watch. Crazy talented. How am I going to make it through 2 hours of Ja talk and now people are peppering me with talk more Ja? What happened? We set out specifically today. We booked the voice of the damn Memphis Grizzlies to talk about Ja.
The first thing we said on our pre-show phone conversation today was, we have to open with Ja, right?
That's the first thing we said. And listen, I get not everybody has the time to sit in their car for 3 hours and listen to sports talk radio.
But it's ironic.
I completely understand. But like all of our good work, all of our efforts to make sure that we included the entire sports landscape in the state of Tennessee, foiled again by, lunch breaks. 615-737-1045. You can jump in if you like. The combine is currently ongoing. Coaches and GMs are meeting with media members right now. In fact, our buddy Teron Davenport's already up there, it would seem. And he's at Arthur Smith's availability, former Titans offensive coordinator, now, of course, the Falcons head guy. He was asked about Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill. Teron tweets, Arthur Smith declined to comment or reflect on his time with Tannehill, said he's focused on the Falcons. These things are useless for the quotes. Like, I was hoping that Vrabel, it would work with the schedule to get Vrabel on the radio show tomorrow. One, because I want to ask him about what the hell was happening with Will Compton in that birthday cake picture. That is, big Jay Journo type stuff.
Ask him at the presser.
I'm not going to be able to do the presser. I'm on the air.
That's right.
You want me to leave you and Allen Kirby to do the show again like L.A.?
Sure. Or you could leave that question with someone. Who would you want to leave that question with?
For Titans media?
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, why are you letting Will lick, or why are you licking cake icing off of Will Compton's finger at a hockey game? Who would elicit the funniest reaction of all of the media members? Because I think Teresa may actually, I don't know if Teresa's going to the combine. I don't know. Teresa's presence is usually the thing that keeps Mike Vrabel from, taking all of our heads off right out of the gate. Like Teresa out of the gate with the first question typically softens him. But I don't know that we're going to have that kind of barrier between us and Mike tomorrow. So let me think about it. I'll put it in our group text, see who's feeling froggy tomorrow, wants to ask about the icing on the finger, the whole deal. I also wanted to talk to him about the funny press conference clips, but there will be time for that. As far as what the objective at this combine is, of course, that the medical, each stage of the offseason, of the pre-draft process, has its own priorities. So for me to narrow it down to one single one and say, no, this is the one thing that they have to do to have a successful offseason. Well, that doesn't exist, right? It's taken piece by piece. The objective here is for the Titans, and I'll tell you why this matters in particular. Because of their track record, and this is something that I've been thinking about writing later today anyway, probably by the time I get up to Indianapolis. The medicals are particularly important for the Titans because of their tendencies in the first round to take chances on injured players. Now, it's not outright like a long history of it, right? We're really talking about two primary examples. One that has panned out, one that is not. The one that has panned out in spades is Jeffrey Simmons, who fell through the draft process in the first round, only to 19, so still a top 20 selection as an interior defensive tackle, which, by the way, doesn't happen anymore. The Simmons situation, I'd be curious. I think that Dexter Lawrence from Clemson was taken over Jeff Simmons by the Giants. I think that was true. Lucas, if you could look up for me the 2019 draft order that was here in Nashville, because that makes David Football Gettleman even more egregious than he was.
Right, because Simmons was 18, right?
19.
19, right.
So
Lawrence was 17.
The pick before Jeff?
Two picks before.
Two pick before Jeff.
If Jeff was the 19th overall pick,
yeah.
Lawrence was 2 picks
No,
before.
I remember specifically him being the 19th selection. Dexter Lawrence for the New York Giants. That's so egregious. But here's the thing, right? Like, that tells you everything you need to know. Now, maybe not everything, and it's one big example of one guy who wasn't very good at his job, clearly. Look at the Giants. But for the Titans, their interest in players at value based on injuries. You know who immediately comes to mind when I think about that in the first round this year? Can you guess? Jamison Williams, the wide receiver out of Alabama. Now, listen, he tore his ACL late in the season, so there would be an extended amount of time that he may miss. Again, like Jeff. Jeff did not make his debut in his rookie year in 2019 until October. By the way, with their season very much like hanging in the balance, that game here in Nashville against the Chargers, where Jeff had to basically, Jeff was a big part of the reason why they were able to stop Phillip Rivers and the Chargers on the goal line to keep that game in hand. So you have Jeff and you have Caleb Farley. And the whole line on Caleb Farley, the former Titans first-round pick, the most recent Titans first-round pick, is they felt comfortable enough in the medicals around his back, a procedure that he had, and then a cleanup after the fact. They felt confident enough in the medicals to select him with their first-round pick, right? Because you're talking about players injured, but you feel good enough about the medicals, so you're getting a value that you're basically hoping pans out and pays dividends in your favor. Teams do this. It's not like the Titans are the only ones that do this. And basically, this week is critical to finding out, all right, can I take a chance on somebody like Jamison Williams? If he, in fact, by the way, I have no idea if he even makes it to 26. This is a hugely talented player at a premium position. Should he fall that far, I think the conversation would become fascinating around him to Tennessee. But for the Titans, their priority is the medicals right now. That is the most important thing to result out of this week. I'm currently watching Sean McDermott on the stage on NFL Network. They're broadcasting live coverage of the Combine right now with Andrew Siciliano. But with everything that's happening around the Titans, can you afford to have a player like that in the first round? Or are you in a place where you need instant impact? Now, I think in a perfect world, you would say, can I have both? Can I take a risk, quote unquote, even though everything in this process there are degrees of risk. You have no idea how players are going to pan out, whether they're going to pan out. And it's all very much predicated on geography, because turns out bad teams don't know what they're doing and they can ruin players very, very quickly. Look at Trevor Lawrence in one season, for God's sakes, what Jacksonville is doing to him, provided that Doug Peterson doesn't bail him out. So as you're kind of going into this week and as you're paying attention to the coverage around the Titans, and of course we'll be up there, courtesy of Scoreboard Bar and Grill, to provide you some of that coverage, I think that's something that you have to keep very, very much in mind. Players that are dealing with injury, that are going through this process in their rehab, and kind of evaluating, all right, who are you most comfortable taking a risk on? There's going to be tight ends to study. I think it's an interesting wide receiver class in particular, because there's a lot of dudes who maybe at the top end don't stand out to you, but like day 2 or basically round 2 through round 5, I think there's a variety of different players with different talents that can help this football team right away, based on what I've been able to study so far. And we'll have a lot of expert analysis from Indianapolis all week long on this. But like somebody like Wan'Dale Robinson, right, the Kentucky wide receiver, who's just a dog, just an absolute playmaker, somebody who is tough, determined, and people would love him here. I know Kentucky and Tennessee deeply at odds, but like when I watch him play and when I watch the way that he plays, like it reminds me a lot of Jawan Jennings.
Talk about a transfer paying off for 1 year.
He's not physically overwhelming. Yeah, just a
Nebraska.
massive boost for that Kentucky offense this year. And I saw some people tweeting out like draft evaluation about like Will Levis, not obviously for this current draft class, but for potential. I think that's going to be an interesting conversation around next year's quarterback class too, because I can't figure that guy out for the life of me.
He's got an NFL coach coordinating him this year.
Well, the Kentucky, we haven't talked about that. The amount of NFL coaching talent that Kentucky is hiring, and the fact that people are leaving Kentucky to go take pro jobs. Mark Stoops running a really interesting program down there. But like somebody like Wan'Dale Robinson, right? He's not physically overwhelming. I have no idea right now where he's going to project most and how draft evaluators will kind of meter this thing out. But when you look at what the Titans' tendencies are, does this not make all the sense in the world? He's 5'11", he's 185. We'll get his official measurements, height, weight, hand size, everything in between. You can run, but you can't hide, Kenny Pickett. We're going to measure your hands eventually, as he avoided that at the Senior Bowl. But Titans tend to go towards these bigger wide receivers who are not just going to be focal points of a passing volume offense, because, of course, that's not what this is at all, but guys who are willing to do the gritty, dirty stuff at the wide receiver position to help your offense go, which, of course, is heavily predicated on the ability to run the football. He had 104 catches, 1,334 yards, 7 touchdowns. It was the only season that he was in the SEC, and he was great. He felt like the only reason they were in that Georgia game at all towards the end of the season, because the quarterback was obviously under duress when Georgia played at, were they at Kroger Field? I think they were at Kroger Field, if memory serves. Anyway, doesn't matter. I think that you're going to see, listen, talent evaluators have a type. Jon Robinson has a type. Mike Vrabel has a type. But for all of the different things that you're kind of studying at this point, you'll see stuff start to identify itself in the way that these prospects are discussed and in the way that you start to see the conversation change this week, specifically with guys who are able to perform and what scouts and GMs who are in attendance there specifically to watch these guys are going to make their evaluations on. It's not going to, this is not the finishing portion of the pre-draft process, because obviously pro days are still ahead, and many players, agents as well, value the pro days more for the individual performance in a more comfortable setting than a super sanitized, nearly bubbled situation in Indianapolis where they tried to take their trainers and agents and, nutritionists and everything else that the prospects need right now away from them for a week at one of the most important times of the year. Ridiculous. But particularly wide receivers and tight ends, how they emphasize, and basically that's going to be, I think, a main line of questioning for John and Mike tomorrow when they speak. And we're looking forward to having Jon Robinson on the radio show tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Central Time at our table in Indianapolis. Going to be a fun road trip to get up there. Other guys that I'm kind of curious about, just based on the top prospects, who emerges basically as the consensus overall best quarterback in this draft class, because we are to March 1st, and nobody seems to have the answer to that. Malik Willis is getting a lot of attention out of Liberty. Made some progress, I think, for himself at the Senior Bowl, despite some adverse circumstances that were around that situation, that week of practice, weather-wise in particular. Kenny Pickett does not seem to be the clear-cut best prospect at the quarterback position anymore. You'll see a lot of stuff start to be floated out there. I know we have that J. Martin Ramon promo that's running about the season of lies. Buddy, it peaks for a week at the downtown Indianapolis Kilroy's Sports Bar and Grill, where many people at the Combine will, that and Prime 47. No free ads, but, we're not in the Indianapolis market, so I don't think we're doing anything wrong by mentioning those two places. That's where the NFL will congregate, outside of the Indiana Convention Center and the playing surface at Lucas Oil, where a lot of these drills will be run. When we come back, last call for phone calls. We'll do some polls. We'll get out of here for the day, and then I'll get in the car and drive up to Indy. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Final segment. Tuesday show been fun. If you missed any of it, check out the podcast. Contrary to some of the calls we've gotten today, we have talked about the Grizzlies, probably to our detriment. Who was it? Brandon in Murfreesboro called us earlier. Why aren't you talking more Grizzlies? Why does Nashville have such disdain for the city of Memphis? To which I responded, what do you want? What do you want from me?
Well, we've gotten complaints about both sides of it.
Oh, yeah. You just DM'd me a tweet that somebody sent you on our Jerry Stackhouse interview, because we went basketball heavy today. Flint at Live Now For Me is his Twitter. I'm always interested to understand the psychology of how people come up with their Twitter accounts. Anyway, at Live Now For Me tweets us. Oh, my God, nobody gives two bleeps about Memphis or Jerry Stackhouse and Vanderbilt. Damn, hitting the bottom of the barrel today with this. What do you want?
What do you want?
What do you want from me?
Probably complain, talk too much combine, too.
Well, that's a perpetual complaint. The NFL hasn't played football for a month. Why are you still talking about it? Because it's the only thing that people care about right now in the sports landscape.
That's not true.
No, well, what I'm saying is it takes 52 points. It takes a scoring record for the Grizzlies for us to talk about Ja because of people's general, I don't think that tweeter speaks for everybody, but it does speak for a lot of people.
It's March, man. That's where my mind's at.
I know, but we've had this conversation before. If we did the show that you and me want to do for our purposes and our interests in sports, it would be a very different show than actually makes it on the air.
You're right. We did ask the people, though, about March Madness versus the Combine, and the people have spoken, which we'll get to here in a moment. But I'm just saying.
What is that in the background? What is that noise?
That's my reminder to shout out Two Rivers Ford on the polls segment. I'm a forgetful man, so I have to set up things to help me along the way.
You have what is that, a phone alarm?
Yeah.
What is that ringtone? Play that do that again on the microphone.
I don't know how to make that happen
okay.
again.
Well, that's not helpful.
Jerry Stackhouse was awesome, by the way.
I thought he was good.
Go listen to the podcast.
Yeah, go check it out. Pete Pranica, too, for your Grizzlies talk and college basketball needs. Any final orders of business before we do the polls, or should we just do the polls? All right, let's do the polls.
Stop the count. Stop the count. The polls have closed, and the votes have been tallied. It's the segment where bias takes over and nuance goes to die. Now, here's your favorite Buck Reising Show daily correspondent, Lucas Polzica.
Quick to the club.
Sponsored by Two Rivers Ford, powered by Ford, driven by people. I remembered that all by myself. Who are the winners of the weekend? Puka says Jon Morant. Kenneth says Ali Marpet. I hope I pronounced that right. The retired offensive lineman for the Bucks made $37 million, won a Super Bowl, retired at 28 before his body takes any more punishment.
Man, the Bucks. That whole situation is going to devolve quickly. How much do you think starts to fray now that Brady's out? Because, and maybe it's just that his body is giving out on him, and also he's looking at this like, I'm not really down for another quarterback that's going to throw 30 interceptions or something of the like. Let me just retire now a champion. That's one that we hadn't talked about a lot, but was pretty interesting this past week. I tell you that FIFA was my winner of the weekend for banning Russia from the upcoming World Cup. What is that? 2026, the next World Cup. 22. Forgive me. On the horizon, Russia officially banned as a portion of. There's much heavier sanctions coming down on the Russian government right now, and unfortunately for the people of Russia, who are probably as disenchanted with this as anybody. But looking forward to talking to Eddie O'Reilly on Thursday. Correct?
Yes, we should have Eddie on Thursday.
The Ukrainian-based Titans fan who's been documenting his he and his family fleeing from the country amid invasion. So we'll talk to him on Thursday. That will be a fascinating conversation.
And they are safely in Bucharest, which is great news for everybody.
Sure.
Will, Mark, and Has-Been Sports say Nashville SC, the winners of the weekend. We obviously covered that yesterday, their season opening win in Seattle. Who are the losers of the weekend? Our guy Brett Batchelor, who's sitting right over there in the green room, says Phil Mickelson.
Still Phil taking L's? Still. Okay. What happened? Did Phil do something else? Did I miss it?
Maybe he lost another sponsorship.
Oh, really?
Lost his title as the host of the PGA Tour's Amex Championship, had his deal with Callaway put on pause, and all but ruined his chances to become a Ryder and President's Cup captain. Brett would know. Brett's a big golf guy.
Damn. That's, hey, you know what? You suffer the consequences. Like, I get what he's saying about you don't say stuff like that to a journalist who's writing an unauthorized autobiography about you, or a biography, not an autobiography, but a biography about you. You don't say things like that to a journalist who you know is going to document you in some form or fashion. Phil, the stupidity still boggles my mind.
Alan says Kyler is the loser of the weekend.
That's tough.
Great Value Man says poor Jakob Poeltl, who was posterized by Jon Morant last night. Kenneth says the NFL news cycle is the loser unless scrubbed Instagrams and QBs begging for money is your thing. We're all waiting for some fun news to drop, and it hasn't.
That's a good question, right? Because this is a lot more fluff in an offseason than I think we're accustomed to between Aaron Rodgers and Kyler Murray's social media, Tom Brady, and the botched social media retirement, or like the lack of credit given to Patriots fans, or like silly things like this, right? It has been a fairly uneventful offseason, but good news. This stuff's about to get crazy basically for a week, because everybody's going to be hanging out in bars together, trying to do deals that are going to be done as soon as the quote-unquote legal tampering period begins.
What position group will you be paying most attention to at the NFL Combine? 47% say wide receiver, 33% tight end, 15% offensive line, 5% edge.
Wide receiver and tight end for me. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of different positions that warrant discussion and study. I'm going to be there for every day of the NFL Combine, spending the weekend up in scenic Indianapolis as well. So that will be a great time had by all. And we'll be sure to bring you all kinds of great content and coverage back, especially given the amount of Tennessee players who are going to be participating in the Combine as well. 4 total at last count of the 300 and I think it's like 25 total invitees. So going to be fun. I promise it'll be more. We'll make it more worth your while than just the underwear Olympics.
Do you care if MLB opening day gets canceled? 58% do not.
I don't. I just don't. I wish I did. I know people do. That's probably irritating for some people to hear, but like every time baseball does something that's not baseball, it gets me further and further away from caring about baseball, especially when you tell me, oh, there's this deadline. The world's going to come to an end if we don't hit this deadline. And then what do? You move the deadline to the next day at 5 p.m. Out of here with baseball.
What excites you more, March Madness or the NFL Combine? 79% say March Madness. Pinstripe Shortstop says 21% of the voters are losers, to be honest. Ethan says, why is this a question? Eldon says, who in their right mind is excited for the Combine? And TK says March Madness might be the best couple of weeks in sports. Kenneth asks, I need to meet these people who prefer underwear Olympics over March Madness. Reveal yourself.
Here's the thing. I think people prefer to watch, obviously, March Madness over the Combine. But when it comes to the content of it, outside of the games, that there would be a little more balance between the amount of people who are consuming pre-draft stuff as well as college basketball. Those the polls?
Those are the polls.
All right, very good. That's the show. It's a lot of fun. Many thanks to our guest today, Pete Pranica, the voice of the Memphis Grizzlies, and Coach Jerry Stackhouse. Big game for Vandy men's squad hosting Florida on West End tonight. Vol Network tonight. Also, by the way, Tennessee is on the road at Georgia, and it will be a massive game for them to try and finish out their regular season against an opponent that has not been easy for them as of late. So you can check out that tip-off, 5:30 on 104.5 The Zone. So preempting 3HL a little bit today. I'm sure Ron Slater's just going to sit here in the studio, probably finish off what's left of his Krispy Kreme donuts that apparently he brought in on his way to being late to J. Martin Ramon. But you know what? We all partook. We are all guilty. Except Blaine and Mickey. They're next.